Hey guys, before we jump full force into today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast, I wanted to thank our sponsor, Growth Gathering. Growth Gathering is an online and in-person summit dedicated to helping you achieve your personal, financial, and overarching goals inside of your life. Inside Growth Gathering, you hear from the top industry leaders in real estate, financial success, and personal development. These leaders are encouraged to help you achieve your best life in whatever means and fashion that may look like. And the best part about it all, it's completely free. Guys, if you want to start tuning into Growth Gathering, it is every Wednesday at 7 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Once again, you can come join us in person if you live here in the Utah area, or if you live outside of Utah in a different state where you just don't like being that social and coming to events. Don't worry, everything is hosted on Zoom as well. Once again, this is 100% free. If you guys want to tune into Growth Gathering, in the description of today's episode, you'll be able to find a link to the website, as well as where you can come in person or get access via Zoom. Guys, thank you so much for listening to today's episode, and thank you for Growth Gathering for sponsoring. What's going on, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. A podcast helping you destroy your self-limitations and hearing from the people who have led from the front. In today's episode, if you guys are watching, I got my friend Jimmy Watsonson next to me. I've known Jimmy since he was actually my TA back in one of my classes, one of my entrepreneurship classes. What was that, like 2 years ago?
Yeah, two years ago. Yeah.
And then me and Jimmy were actually, before he graduated BYU, he and I were in the same club. It's the Seed Club. It's for a group of entrepreneurs at BYU who anyone kind of who has their own business and who are kind of trying to make a name for themselves. But in today's episode, we're going to be discussing a little bit about Jimmy's entrepreneurial journey, kind of how he got started in that, and some practical feedback he can give some of our younger audience, as well as those who are a little bit older trying to do their own thing. But real quick, a little bit about Jimmy. Jimmy is from Houston, Texas, and he graduated from BYU in entrepreneurial management last April. While still a junior at BYU, Jimmy started Bun Boiz, a fast casual restaurant which served Asian fusion steamed buns. While still growing Bun Boiz, Jimmy began working on the concept of what is now Budget Bites, a mobile app that enables users to try new food in a sustainable way while also enabling restaurants to be more sustainable and market to new customers. So yeah, we're super excited to have Jimmy on today. We're going to learn a little bit about his early days starting Bun Boiz, which I guess you recently just sold it. Is that right?
Yeah, recently just sold it, yeah.
Yeah, so anyone here in the Provo area, you guys got to go check them out. Hopefully the quality sticks up to when you were running it.
Hopefully, yeah.
Hopefully, right?
Yeah.
But yeah, it's under new ownership, but anyone who is interested, at the end of the episode in the description, I'll link the website and the location for Bun Boiz if you guys want to go try that. And then a little bit further, we'll jump into what Budget Bites is and kind of your journey throughout it.
Sweet, dude. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Yeah. So guys, with all that being said, let's jump into today's episode. So Jimmy, kind of fun fact for all the audience. As many people know, I served my LDS mission in Houston, Texas.
Yeah.
You're from Houston.
Yeah.
We were just discussing you're from Spring, so a little bit of outside where I was living, but I don't know. Houston's a pretty good place. Besides, I'm not an Astros fan, but besides that.
Astros are controversial, man. That's always what it is. But
Are you a big baseball guy?
I'm not huge, but I love the Astros. Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Yeah.
See, I'm a Dodger fan, man, and it's very controversial. So
we won't get into it. So
we'll try and keep it simple for the podcast today.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, guys, I met Jimmy a couple of years ago. He's one of my TAs, one of my favorite TAs, I should point out, because he actually helped things get done sometimes when others wouldn't. But to get through your kind of journey, you obviously started Bun Boiz at a time in your life where a lot of people would think you got to focus primarily on school. You got to kind of put your head down, and then after you graduate, go get some big boy job, right?
Yeah. No, it was definitely hard to kind of like wrap my brain around starting something in school, and then it got easier as I just kind of looked at what I was doing with my life in like college. You know, I was a pre-med major, and then I moved over to business, and I didn't really know what I wanted to do. And then I took an entrepreneurship class, the one I TA'd for, and that kind of made me go, okay, maybe I should start something while I'm in school. I don't have a wife, I don't have kids, you know. It's probably like the best time to like take risks. And so I was just like, brainstorming on stuff I could do. And Budget Bites was kind of one of the ideas I had, or Bun Boiz was one of the ideas that I had. And yeah, just kind of started making stuff in my apartment, and then it kind of just grew a little bit from there, little by little. But yeah, kind of tough to wrap my brain around it at first, and it was really hard. Breaking the news to my family. I guess my dad's an orthodontist, and he was really gunning for me to like follow his path and like take over the practice and stuff. Yeah. But they've been really supportive since I kind of laid out the plan, and it's been good. So.
Well, I mean, I don't know how they couldn't be supportive at this point. It actually worked. Like, I always get the whole concept of like a parent's worried because it could be 9 times out of 10, or I guess 2/3, right? They actually do fail, but in your case, it works. So hey, they got to be happy now, right?
Yeah, no, they're big supporters now. Yeah, and I remember like sitting down like after I'd already planned a pop-up for Bun Boiz. I was like, I'm ready to do this, and I hadn't told my dad yet. I had told my mom, and then I like called him up. I was like, hey, I had this whole plan. Here's what it's gonna be. I laid it out. I'm already doing it. You can't stop me. And he was like, oh, sounds great. Yeah, I love it. I love the idea. I think you're gonna do great. I said, oh, I was not expecting.
You're like, wait, you were supportive about this? Thanks.
No, it was so random, but no, it was really good. So.
And how old were you when you started Bun Boiz?
22.
So you're 22 years old.
Yeah.
You're what, sophomore at that point?
Yeah,
freshman?
I junior. Yeah,
so junior. Okay, so
yeah,
junior.
So a little farther along. I had done like a year and a half as like pre-med, and then I had switched my major to, I think I switched it to Spanish, or I was gonna switch to marketing or something. I don't know. I didn't know what I was doing. But yeah, 22, living alone in my apartment and trying to make buns in my apartment when I had free time during classes. I would like skip a ton of classes just to like have friends come over and try stuff or make new recipes. And
so yeah, like let me ask you this:
Yeah.
Was it a brand new concept? Like, why buns? Like, and I guess for anyone who doesn't know what we're talking about, can you describe it a little bit?
So Bun Boiz, what we do, or like what I did is like bao buns, if you know what those are. It's like bread. It's traditionally like Asian, like every different culture kind of has one. Like Japanese have a different name for it. Like it's called nikuman, and China it's called bao buns. And there's just like so many different types. Hawaii has a version called manapua. And so like I had just eaten them all over the place, like kind of growing up. My family like is big. They're big foodies, and they like to travel. So, and I like to cook. And so, yeah, what it is like a yeast dough, and you steam it instead of like baking it, and you fill it with like different meats and stuff like that. But what we did was I basically said, okay, I haven't seen anybody like put American fillings in. Basically anything that was like good in like a sandwich, I was like, let's just put that inside a bun because it's all in like,
see how it goes, right?
Yeah, just kind of see how it goes. And so that was kind of the start of it. But yeah, I just like to cook, and I had the idea for it, and I thought it was kind of novel. You know, I feel like everyone does burgers, everyone does pizza, everyone does tacos. Right. But I was like, nobody's done bao buns, first of all, in Provo, and then nobody's done like American fusion ones either. So that's where I kind of
So two questions off that.
Yeah.
Did you like ever like travel to Asia? Like, is there a reason why this, or your family solely just loved buns?
No, yeah, they just
or
love
whatever
buns,
you call them in the other cultures.
No, yeah, my one of my dad's best friend is Asian and lived in California, so we'd like go out to eat with him all the time, and that's kind of where I like introduced to it. And then I lived in New York City for a second too. And one of my best friends who was living out there is half Chinese, and he would take me to Chinatown, and we go eat buns all the time. And he kind of put the idea in my head that I should maybe start like a restaurant because I'd cook for him and stuff. And then I was like, what would you think about if I did this? And he's like, yeah, that sounds like a really good idea. Huh. So, yeah, no, I didn't serve a mission there or anything. I served a mission for the LDS church in Mexico City. So
it's definitely like, a different culture, different food.
Yeah, just random. I like learned on YouTube how to make them. I think I've got like, I don't know, over 1,000 hours of just like watching women in an Asian country make bao buns and just like watching their technique and like trying to hone in on like what they're doing and like copy it as best I can.
That is awesome.
Yeah.
And how did you know that? Because like you said, there was nothing like that in Provo at the time. Everyone has the typical like burgers, fries, pizzas, tacos, sandwich shops, right?
Shops, yeah.
But not only were you taking a concept that you were, you know, kind of doing it as you go, you're learning it as you go, but then you also say, well, I'm not going to do the traditional version where I'm going to use exactly what they put in it,
right,
but I'm going to Americanize this a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, how did you, first off, prove that that would even work? Where's your validation from?
Uh-huh.
Were you ever worried, like, well, crap, like this might actually suck. Like, who on earth is going to buy this? Like, there had to have been a million questions rolling through your head at first, or you just kind of go for it.
You know, I want to like say that I really thought it through. I just like the idea just kept me up at night, and I was like, I'm just going to start doing it, you know? And, that meant, you know, just kind of making it and seeing if I liked it. I feel like I'd been cooking for people, like just randomly, like Sunday dinners and stuff like that. Right. I feel like I'm like an okay chef, you know? And so like I kind of figured out what I liked first, and then I'd have people over on like Sundays or Saturdays, and I'd just be like, hey, just like come try this food that I'm making. It's kind of this new thing that I'm trying to try out. So I'd have friends, and then I would be like, I'm going to give this to you for free, but you have to bring somebody that I don't know, so I could get some like unbiased opinion, you know?
There you go.
Some validation there. But that was like where it kind of stemmed from. And then I ultimately decided that the only way I was going to really know if it was going to work was by selling them. And we decided to do a pop-up for that.
Just like at a farmer's market, or where at?
So I had just like done a bunch of research on like pop-up shops. There's not like a lot of info out there for people who are like trying to start a restaurant, you know? And I had seen one video that I think these bakers did like a donut shop there. They just went around and talked to different bakeries or places that, you know, serve maybe food in the opposite time schedule that you want to serve food at. Does that make sense? So like
if they're a morning restaurant, you would go in the afternoon.
Yeah, you'd go in the afternoon and evening and like kind of take over their shop basically, and use their equipment. You pay them like a percentage of sales or something. You'd be there for like a week or two, just trying out your concept. And so I went around to a bunch of different businesses in Provo and Orem, and I was probably asked like 8 businesses. I was like, would you let me like take your space over from 6 p.m. to midnight for the next like 2 weeks and just kind of let me test this thing? And I just kept getting no. And then finally I found, there's a place called Penguin Brothers here, I'm sure you know. So they are good friends with the guy at TF for Corbin Church, and they were like, yeah, come to our catering facility, see if maybe it's a thing that you want to do. And I brought them a ton of buns, and they're like, this is amazing. You gotta do it, dude. So they let me do it for free.
Wow. No guarantees at all.
No guarantees. They were just like, yeah, just try it out and see how it goes. It was kind of end of COVID, I guess, like February 2021. So they were like, just make sure people aren't like gathering and eating inside the place. And so, yeah, we ended up kind of launching it from there. And then it was an eye-opening experience. It was really tough the first night.
Did you have anyone coming in, or
no,
how did you spread the word?
We just marketed on Instagram. I think I told people on our Instagram if they like reposted us, I would give them a free
bun or something.
Yeah, free bun. And we got a ton of reposts from that. And then we did some flyers around campus, at BYU campus. And then, yeah, it was a Thursday night, and it was kind of crazy. Like we had a line like around the corner of this building, and I think we sold out in 3 hours. And like people were waiting like an hour for their food. It was just like a disaster. But like we ran out of food, and I just had no idea what we were doing. I had a plan, didn't go anywhere near what I thought it was going to go. But we like definitely learned a ton from like that first time. And then we learned that people liked the food. People were genuinely like liking it. And then the next day, we kind of had our stuff together a little bit more, and people that came on Thursday came back on Friday, and they brought a friend. And people that were there on Friday who really liked it because we actually had our stuff together, brought more people on Saturday. And like, so it was really good. And that's kind of how I knew, okay, we've got something here.
You had something rolling.
People were liking it. They're coming back. It was an interesting time too, because people were just like looking for something new, because COVID had kind of shut everything down. Nothing was happening like new, I guess.
Yeah.
And so it was interesting to see people like coming out for that, and coming out of the woodwork a little bit and getting out of their homebody shells again, you know?
Yeah, and a lot of your story, it reminds me, I'll link this in the description of today's episode as well, and I think we talked about this one in our class 2 years ago, that how I built this episode on Five Guys. Yeah. Have you listened to that one?
Yeah, I have.
A lot of your stories reminded me of that.
Yeah.
Because they went off into a location that was a little off the beaten path,
so
right?
Obscure,
they said, all right, if we can get people into our restaurant, not on the main streets, we know we're going to have something good because we can pull people in. And then, yeah, it kind of just hectic house for them too.
Yeah, totally.
Dude, I'm just trying to picture this. You just post it on Instagram and say, hey guys, come try this out. And then all of a sudden you got a line waiting an hour and a half out the door.
Yeah, no, it was really weird. I don't really understand how it happened. I was like I just remember being really stressed. Like the night before, we still hadn't figured out a recipe for one of the buns that was like supposed to be our staple bun. and like we just hadn't figured it out yet. It was still like really bad. And then at 3 a.m., me and my cousin were like in the kitchen and we like cooked something up. My cousin just came to like help, and he like made this sauce for this pork. Char siu pork is like the staple of like bao buns, right? And I tried it. I was like, I think that's good enough, and people just like raved about it, and it was really, really good. But like that's how it was going down. It was like super last minute. Nobody knew what they were doing. I had just planned this thing. I talked to the owners of the shop like a week before it, and they're like, when do you want to do it? I was like, next week. Let's just get it out of the way, you know? And so yeah, I really, it was just kind of like a blur. Like I had just friends. I feel like just friends spread the word for me a little bit. You know, they were reposting, and when I was cooking the food, like I had friends there posting about it and stuff. And I think people, like I mentioned earlier, people were just looking for something to do, like on a Thursday night at like 6 p.m. And it was like a weird, obscure street too in Provo, like not on Center Street, which is like the main hub of food in Provo. You know, it was like a couple blocks away, next to like the police station, kind of in the ghetto. Like it was just totally weird. And yeah, I remember I got like no sleep the night before. I think I was up to like 3 or 4, maybe 5 a.m., like just dropping food off over at the spot. And by the end of the weekend, I had this like weird rash on my feet from stress. Like it was just totally weird. But yeah, definitely just like felt really blessed, and like a ton of support from people. Like my friends came the first night and then they didn't come after that. And that's also like a telltale sign that I was like, okay, this is something.
But you still have people come the next day.
Still have people come the next day. Yeah. People just told friends of friends, and you know, every night we got a little bit better at our process. Like Friday was better than Thursday, and we still sold out. And then Saturday, I think we were really close to selling out. But like each of those nights, we did like over $1,000, like $1,500 each night. And I was like, this is kind of insane, just to have like immediate traction like that. And so from then on, I was like, okay, I think the next step is like a storefront or like something, you know. And from there, we just kept doing pop-ups around Provo. We ended up just kind of settling into a parking lot in like a grocery store, and that was what kind of worked best for us. And as we kind of grew from that.
Was that out of back of a truck, or what was it?
At first, it was like me and like 3 friends' cars. Like we would.
So you just pull up your car and say, "Hey, come buy some of these."
Yeah, we would set up these camp stoves. So we'd have like 3 or 4 camp stoves. I'd rent a generator from Home Depot every week. We just do it on Friday to Saturdays, like from 6 to midnight was like our schedule. And then I just have friends like come hang out, like, and volunteer basically. Like they really liked it for some reason. So anyways, it was just funny. Yeah. Like I'd have all this equipment in my apartment, and I was lucky because our kitchen was like pretty big. And yeah, I had to have like 3 or 4 friends like bring everything with me. We'd drive it over, drop it off, set up, and just kind of sit there with like some lights on in February and March. And sometimes it would be snowing, and we would just sit there and people would come. And it was like, we'd post on our Instagram if we were going to be open that weekend, and people would come. And eventually we bought a big like moving van, like truck, so I could get rid of all the stuff that was in my apartment because my roommates were getting mad at me. So, and then like eventually my landlord called me. He's like, do you have a restaurant like out of your apartment? Because that's violating the contract. I was like, no.
Not at all.
We just store stuff there. And he's like, oh, okay, that's fine. I was like, okay. Because technically we didn't have a restaurant there. It was outside of the Smith's parking lot, you know? Like,
dude, I love this story. You were bootstrapping this thing from the get-go, man. Yeah. It's like literally any weird process you could have taken just to try and figure out if this was a good concept to get traction and get people coming. You can't even say through the doors. You guys didn't even have doors.
No, we didn't have doors. It was just...
It's just amazing, dude.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. Just a parking lot. That's all it is. So.
Dude, I want to take a step back and just like,
yeah,
I hope everyone's listening to how willing you were to actually trying to achieve this. Like, this thing was keeping you up at night.
Yeah.
I don't know if you would call it your dream because you probably hadn't even pictured it that long, but at the time you're like, dude, this is keeping me awake. Like, I got to do something. I either got to get out there and prove that it's going to work, or at least let my brain cool off and say, all right, I tried, but it's not feasible. I didn't get good validation, right?
Yeah, no, totally. It was one of those things where, yeah, I really liked the idea. People liked it, you know? And then like every morning I feel like I had to remind myself of that. I was like, okay, I like this. Like it's something that I think can go like the distance, you know? And I was like, I don't know if it's made me like a billionaire, like even a millionaire, right? But like it was something that people liked. I liked the concept of it. And you know, every morning you have to like kind of remind yourself, like I'm the person that's doing this, you know? And I've got to go make it happen.
Right.
And yeah, even if it was like kind of hard sometimes and I couldn't sleep or didn't get any sleep, on the weekends or didn't have a social life, it was just kind of, yeah, I really wanted to make it happen. And I was just figuring out how to do it.
So yeah, Jimmy, you're at this point where, you're kind of just slinging it. You do this whole pop-up, it's going good. You're kind of sitting through these winters in the Smith's parking lot. By the way, did Smith's ever get mad at you guys for selling out of their parking lot, or were they pretty chill with it?
I never even asked anyone permission. I saw food trucks doing it occasionally, and I was like, I bet we could just start doing it. Let's just try it out until somebody kicks us out. And yeah, nobody ever came and talked to us. I would go pass out flyers to employees in Smith's. I'm like,
they never cared.
We're just out in the parking lot. They're like, oh, cool. Nobody ever cared.
Wow. Dude, I've been Christmas caroling at Walmart when I started my LDS mission. We went Christmas caroling in Walmart, and they got mad at us for even just Christmas caroling. So that just go Smiths for letting you guys do your thing, man.
Shout out to Smiths for letting entrepreneurs do their thing, dude. But yeah, no, I was I don't know. I feel like I wasn't really even thinking about it, but now looking back, I'm like very surprised that we didn't nobody told us anything. Like the cops would drive by and I'd be like, shoot, this is the moment we're going to get shut down, and nothing would ever happen. Like they would just wave at us and drive by. And I was like, okay, whatever. We didn't have any permits. I made everyone
even legal to sell food.
No. Yeah. We had a LLC. I filed the business so we could open a business bank account and have a square to take payments and stuff. Right. But no, I had worked in a ice cream shop in high school. And so I knew that I needed to have a food handler's permit. Yeah. So I was like, I'm going to get that for myself and anybody and I eventually got employees because we just, friends think it's really fun for a while and they'll come and help out and they'll volunteer for a second. Then at a certain point, they're like, okay, Jimmy, keep doing you're turning this into a real business now. It's not as fun anymore. Right. So they're like, I got other things to do on Friday, Saturdays. Right. So I eventually hired people and I made them get food handlers permits, but we're just in my apartment, I remember my first, I think maybe first or second employee that we brought on, his name was Patrick, and he comes in and he's like, where's the hand wash sink? Because I know there's supposed to be two separate hand sinks. And I was like, dude, this is an apartment. I just made you get the food handler's permit so you would know food safety, but I guess you can go wash your hands in the bathroom. Don't use the kitchen sink where we wash dishes. But he was just he was so baffled. All my employees will, I'm still friends with a lot of them. One of my first employees became my partner eventually in the business. And she just talks about looking back on it, how weird it was.
And were these other college students? Or
yeah, just other college students. I would interview them. I think we posted on Instagram that we needed employees, and we had a pretty good following on there. So people would DM us, and I'd be like, let's hop on a Zoom call.
Trying to make it official.
Trying to make it really official. But, I would always reschedule with them, and they'd be like, wow, this is kind of weird to reschedule a job interview, and I'd be in my car or something. I'm like, hey, I'm just driving to the food prep store in Salt Lake. Do you mind if we just talk right now on the phone?
And is that because you wanted to seem more official, or is it because you were so busy with starting this thing?
I was busy. I had to be on the go. I remember having to choose between going to class or skipping to go buy restaurant equipment from people on Facebook Marketplace because that was the only time they could meet, or it was super cheap and I needed to get the deal then. And it was hard at first, but then it just became the norm to do what needed to be done for the business, regardless of, kind of school getting in the way. So yeah, I was just kind of on the move all the time. And then even in my apartment, I mean, it was just funny. I'd be coming out of the shower, pulling meat out of the oven as employees are coming in. And I'm in a towel and they're like, what is going on?
It's a complete madhouse.
Yeah. It's just so funny.
But not technically having a restaurant at the apartment, right?
Exactly. We're preparing the food there.
Landlord can't get mad at you for that.
Yeah. We had a extra, an industrial fridge, an industrial freezer there. And I was like, it's just extra storage space.
Dude, you're so lucky you had good roommates.
Yeah, no,
Where were you living at the time?
It was these little condos south of campus, or no, actually north of campus, by the stadium, by BYU Stadium.
Okay.
Timp Gateway is what it's called.
Did you have a ton of extra space, or was this place
it was
jam packed?
The living room is pretty big. So what we would do is we'd set up I think we had 3 folding tables. I'd put one like right next to the door, and then like two closer to the kitchen, and then we used the kitchen counter. The kitchen was pretty big too. And there were only I only had two other roommates. It was just me and two other roommates. So it wasn't too much to like manage. Like if there was six of us, it would have just been a disaster, right?
Yeah.
And one of my roommates was like one of my best friends for my mission, and we were starting Bun Boiz together, but then he just didn't have time to do it, and so he was like chill with it, and my other roommate was just kind of
there for the ride.
just there, yeah. But yeah, it was really cramped when we had all the equipment in there. So after every time we would sell Friday, Saturday, we would move all the equipment into the truck that we had bought, and then we just parked the truck at a stadium parking lot, and nobody touched it ever. It didn't have a lock on it. I don't know. We were just lucky. So
it seems like a lot of this entire process fell down into luck. So
yeah, totally.
Are you a believer in luck, or is it something? I mean, I know that can be controversial for a lot of people, but
yeah, no. I mean, I feel like it's a cliche, but I do believe in it. Like that, we kind of create our own luck. You know, like we can make things happen and opportunities come up in our like day-to-day lives that like provide the chance for lucky things to happen to us. You know, and like beyond that, I think I'm a believer in God. You know, I feel like He plays a hand in our lives when we put in a really good effort, even if we don't. Like He just makes the difference up. And I would say that's luck to me, like in just a different way of looking at it.
Definitely, yeah.
But I mean, I was busting my butt too, you know, like
yeah. It's not like you were kind of sitting on the back burner and letting things happen. You're being proactive about it.
I had a rash on my feet from being up on my feet and like for weeks. It was just so weird. Like I had never, just because I was so stressed and I was just working all the time. I don't even know. It eventually went away. But like, anyways, it's just an example for you. You know, like, yeah, long nights, even longer days sometimes, and yeah, it's tough when you're starting out, especially being like super young in college. Like a lot of people don't understand what you're doing. It's like you don't have as much friend support as you would think. If that makes sense. Like they do support you in the beginning, but then they're like, okay, you're still kind of doing this thing. You're missing classes. Like, that's weird, dude. You're not hanging out with us anymore on the weekends because you're working on your business. Like, that's also weird. And so, I mean, yeah, like when you talk about like hard work, that's like part of like the mental energy that you have to kind of put in is kind of like delayed gratification in a way is also hard. And it's part of like the work you have to do, I think.
So how long were you working on this before it like actually started taking big traction? Because eventually you moved from just working out of Penguin Brothers shop to Smith's parking lot to you guys actually got your own place.
Yeah. So we did the pop-up in February of 21 and then did pop-ups around Provo with the truck until June. And then June, we tried to move into a location. And the landlords were like, yeah, this is going to be great for you. And they helped us build out some stuff. And it was working like a really good deal. It was like right on Center Street, downtown Provo. And then they told me like that they had gotten permits and it was totally good to go. And I didn't know anything, right, about like health department or anything. Right. And then we eventually got shut down by the health department because we didn't have anything like real there. So that was like one of our first real struggles is because we were open for a weekend. We did a grand opening at like our first physical location.
So people got to know this is where Bun Boiz is located now.
Yeah, we had like we had put a Google address listing there. We're getting reviews, you know, we put our Yelp page up. Because we were prepping the space for probably like almost a month while we were still doing pop-ups on the side. And I was actually like in and out of Provo during that summer doing door-to-door sales for a solar company to like support myself while I was just working on this for free.
Right.
So that was kind of hard, but yeah. And then we got shut down by the health department. I got a call at like 7 a.m. on Monday after we did our grand opening. We were going to be open like every day after that. And they're like, sorry, you guys need to shut down. We know you've been operating illegally out of parking lots and stuff for some time. And now that you've opened up a location, you don't have any permitting. You don't have anything legal. Like if you don't shut down, like tomorrow, we're going to fine you X amount. And you'll probably never be able to get a permit in Provo. Like you'll get a ban on you. I was like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. What was going through your head at that point?
I was just like, it's over. Like that's it.
All this hard work for nothing.
Yeah, for nothing.
Thank you, everybody, for listening to today's episode of the Get Over Yourself podcast. We're going to split this series up into 2 parts. Jimmy has a lot of information that he has already shared about how to start a business while in college. And so I wanted to leave this for all the listeners out there so you can dissect it a little bit. Make sure to come back next Friday so you can tune into part 2 of this 2 of 2 series and learn how Jimmy actually was able to overcome the whole mishap with the Utah Health Department and how Bun Boiz became a huge success. Likewise, on the second part of this series, we're going to be discussing Budget Bites, what Budget Bites is, and how Jimmy is literally changing the game for fast food and local restaurants on how they can get new clients and customers, as well as how they can be more sustainable with their food waste. So guys, once again, make sure to tune in next week for this part 2 of the series. And if you enjoyed anything in today's episode, make sure to share it with somebody who you think could benefit from hearing the words, whether you know somebody who's trying to start their own business in college or somebody who would just like an inspirational story from Jimmy and myself. I appreciate everything you always do for me. Feel free, as always, to reach out to me on my email or on my Instagram. All that will be linked in the description below. Make sure to check out Growth Gathering, once again, our sponsor of today's episode. And at the end of the day, just remember, it'll all be okay. And just take a step back and start trying to think outside the box for your solutions rather than following the status quo.